Hey y'all, welcome back. This is Michelle at Michelle's Empty Nest, and today we are going to do the next two prompts in my childhood documented 80s style project. Now remember, this is completely inspired by Leilani, who is at Leilani_Scraps over on Instagram, and Leilani Scraps here on YouTube, and I'll have both of those linked below in the description box. And she did hers as 90s. That's when she did her growing up, and I grew up in the 80s. So I chose that decade to document. And so for number 3, it is hair bands, because we all know that was huge in the 80s. And then I changed this one. I can't remember what she had for number 4, but it wasn't really applicable to the 80s. So I changed it to favorite sitcoms, because I just feel like there were so many great sitcoms during those years. Many that have kind of stood the test of time, come on as reruns. They've almost become iconic, and they've worked themselves into pop culture in some situations. And for me, as documenting my childhood, as this project is doing, sitcoms were a big part of those. I watched them with my family, I watched them with my friends, and so I just wanted to include that. So I also wanted to mention that as I watched back the last video, which was the first one in this this series, I feel like I was really hard on myself and kind of down about how my album was looking. And while I am not loving it 100,000% just yet, I think I was a little bit harder on myself than I needed to be. After I kind of stepped back, took pictures, looked at it, I feel like it is reaching that goal of something that a 12 or a 15 or a 16-year-old Michelle might have actually done during the 80s. And that is what I'm going for, not something that adult Michelle would do today as being aesthetically pleasing and kind of up to date and current, but really going back and trying to capture that mood and feel of what it would have looked like if perhaps I had actually started making this in my childhood in the 80s. So I have a little bit better outlook on it today than I did when I filmed a couple of days ago. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to put you on fast forward. So let's do it.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and kind of take the album apart. It's much easier to just take the pages out and work on them on my craft table than trying to work around, that closure mechanism in the flip book. So I have this blue square paper, and I did the same thing as with the girl bands. I left it the same size as it originally was for the title page size, but for the side with the pictures on it, I shrunk the squares down and just kept copying and pasting until I could fill the page. And so I have score taped that onto kind of that base page that I'm using, that's from the Nina 110-pound cardstock. And I don't know, I just feel better for some reason score taping the pages to that base page. It just makes me feel like maybe it'll be more secure. So I have adhered all of my band photos, and I'm writing the names. I have Bon Jovi, Guns N' Roses, Def Leppard, Poison, Motley Crue, and Skid Row. So those were my favorite hair bands from the 80s. And now I'm going to turn my attention to the title page size. So I grabbed that same neon yellow, bright yellow paper from the girl bands page, and I'm going to stamp out hair bands using the Heidi Swap, it's called Triple Shadow Alpha. And to me, anything that kind of has those layers reminds me of like bubble letters that like me and all my friends at my school drew in the 80s. And so this just kind of reminded me of that. And then I'm going to do like a doodle border around this one as well. And I decided to go with more of like just little spiky sunburst type thing. And I'm going to get that cut out and adhere it to the side that is, what I'm calling like my title page for this prompt. And I'm just going to tape that in place. Oh, sorry. First, I'm going to tape the page down. So I'm going to score tape that page down to my base page again. And then I'm going to get the title piece adhered down. And also, just like with the girl bands page, I had 3 guitars. I had one that was a little bigger and 2 that I shrank down really small. And I'm going to put those on that title page side as well. I took my little Dazzler markers and went around the pictures. And I should have done that ahead of time because I kind of ran into the letters on a couple of them, but it's okay. And honestly, it's probably about what it would have looked like in the 80s before I became as much of a perfectionist as I am today. It wasn't quite so bad back then. All right, so I ran those guitars through my little Xyron machine, and they were just easier to adhere down that way. The little boom box wouldn't fit, so I taped it, and then I went around the little sparkle markers with it on it. And then I went and grabbed a bright blue, just a Sharpie to go around the guitars just so they stand out a little differently. And then I grabbed back that shimmer marker again, and I'm just going to make some random little, squiggles. I don't know, almost like a backwards at sign with some extra loops on it. I don't know. So I set the title page aside, and now I'm going to pull out the stuff for the next prompt. And for that prompt, I need a hinge. So that's what I'm doing there. I usually make them 2 inches wide with just like a regular copy paper. And I make it a little shorter. I think I made it about 8 inches because these pages are 8 3/4 tall. So I put one page, I printed 3 of the same pattern in that small pattern, again, following that big on the left and small on the right. And so I have put like a front and back on one hinge side, and then on this one I decided to use score tape again since it's the one that's going to be flipped. I felt like it needed a little bit more protection. And then I set that aside for a minute, and I'm going to go ahead and adhere down the title page side. And for it, I printed off this TV from one of the Etsy sets, and I'll link those 2 shops or 3 shops below. And so I printed off the TV, and then I just used those markers to write in favorite sitcoms. And I'm kind of thinking here of how I want to address the fact that I need this to be an obvious flip up, that people can see that it needs to be grabbed. So I measured out about how far I needed, just a rough estimate, and marked it with my pencil, and then just grabbed my trimmer and cut off a little piece. It's maybe, I would say, probably about a 1/2 inch, just sitting here looking at it. And then I went and grabbed my little box of Avery Index tabs. And I'm going to get these pictures laid out, and I'm laying them out kind of in the order of how I like them. So Golden Girls is my favorite show of all time. So I have that one, and then I have Cheers, The Facts of Life, Family Ties, The Jeffersons, and Newhart. And then I'm flipping to the inside, and I'm going to get those adhered down as well. And those are Different Strokes, Three's Company, Square Pegs, Happy Days, Who's the Boss, and Punky Brewster. So I closed over the flap just to make sure I was not going to have the pictures sticking out on the underneath. I didn't want that layer of pictures to poke out. So I got the Avery Index tab placed on there, and now I'm adhering that whole flip part to my base page of the Nina cardstock. And then I'm just going to go to town with one of these little shimmer markers again, and I'm going to go around the TV, and I'm going to go around all the pictures. And I have to let this sit for a bit and go do something else because I didn't want to let the shimmer pen, it's not really a glitter, but it kind of like just, it puts a shimmer on you and whatever it's touching. Even after it's dried, it still kind of has a little bit of transfer. So I let that sit for a bit. and went and did something else. And then I grabbed the Feed Your Craft Keep in Touch stamp set, and I just got the little phrase that says laughing out loud and stamped it to go inside of my little Avery index tab. And eventually the front is dry enough for me to write the names of the shows. So I'm going to do that in a Sharpie. And it's kind of hard to read here on screen, but it's easier to see what it says, like sitting here looking at it, in real life. And then I'm going to go ahead and flip and write the names of all the ones on the inside. And I'm putting a sheet of paper down to kind of protect my work surface. And I'm going to write these names before I do the shimmer pen so that I don't have to wait to do those later. And I did not get the spacing well on those front pictures, but it's okay. So there's my journaling. I did it on a bright green. It's kind of close to a neon. It matches that green on the TV fairly well. So I just did a little journaling there, going around with that shimmer pen again, and that's going to finish us up, guys.
Okay, that is where we are going to call this one done. I'm feeling a little better about how it's looking, I think, as I continue on, just kind of embracing what I would have done in the 80s. And, I think these little markers help a lot because I loved using those in the past. And just kind of, going with the flow a little bit. So the hair bands page, I wanted to kind of make it similar to the way the girl bands page was. So I just did that little sketch and cut that out again. And then for favorite sitcoms, I'm pleased with how this little flip out came together. I put that scratch paper in there because it does take a little bit for this to dry, and I just finished it up a couple of minutes ago. And I didn't want it to, it's gonna smear because it's getting on everything regardless, like it never seems to really dry completely, but I didn't want it to ruin the photos all the way. So yeah, I'm feeling a little better about it. So hopefully as I continue on, I will keep feeling better and better about how it's looking. So I thank you so much for stopping by today. It means more to me than you will ever know. There will be close-ups at the end as well as over on Instagram, and I would love for you to follow me over there. I post regularly and I post lots of different types of projects over there. If you enjoyed this video, I would love a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I would love for you to consider doing that as well. Okay, I hope you have an awesome day and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.